we literally no longer have the tolerance to deal with the BS, including
Absolutely.
our own BS or other people's BS. So it's like, get real or get sick.
You're successful on paper. You've got the title, the income, the family that looks right from the outside, and your body is quietly sending you the bill. I know what that's like. Headaches, exhaustion, a marriage that runs like a business partnership and feels like one too. My guest today spent years in medicine before she understood that none of those were separate problems. They were the same signal. Today, we talk about what happens when a high achieving woman stops pushing through and starts reading what her body has been trying to tell her. Welcome back to the Shifted Podcast. Grab whatever's in your glass, coffee, tea, something stronger. It's only 11 o'clock in the morning in New York. And let's toast to the signals that we finally stopped ignoring. So, what are you drinking today?
I have a pineapple coconut icy
Oh, that sounds delicious.
in a champagne glass. So bubbles and all.
I love that. I have water because I went to the gym this morning. I actually said to myself, I got to get up and do it. And my trainer was like, if you don't come, I'm going to text you or FaceTime you. So I went and did that. So I'm just trying to hydrate. So give us one word that describes where you are right now.
Raw.
Okay. I love that. I love that. So welcome back to the Shifted Podcast. I'm Amira Davis. If you are here, you're somewhere in the middle of a shift you did not plan for. That's the whole point of this room. So I've been thinking about the word success. And I feel like, especially for Gen X, midlife, whatever, we were sold a version of it in our 20s. Produce more, push harder, make it work no matter what the cost. And it holds up for a while, but then the body, I feel like, starts sending the invoice. So my guest today is Kayla Licari. She spent years as a physician assistant's PA before she understood that the symptoms that she was treating in other people were the same ones she was ignoring in herself. She left medicine. Now she works with married parents who feel more like business partners than two people who chose each other. So this one is for you if success has started to feel empty, if you have symptoms with no clear cause, if you and your partner are running the same house and living separate lives. Kayla, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and admittedly putting a lot of pressure on myself to just speak whatever is needing to be heard today and deliver on what I think is a common theme right now for women, especially in our generation, really questioning what are we doing and what are we doing it for?
Yeah, I love that. And we're probably going to go off topic. I can already tell just when, I know I sent you a bunch of questions before. I'm like, we're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about today. Cause I just think, there's just so many things. And I know you and I talked probably a month or two ago about just so many different things. And I don't know what it is. There's just some kind of shift, or it's wherever the algorithm has put both of us, that there's just so many things that are happening where maybe it's a midlife thing. I don't know what it is, but lots of change is happening. So tell us where you are right now. Tell us about your life. What does a regular day look like compared to when you were a PA?
It looks completely different. So I have unexpectedly put my entire career on hold, which includes my physician assistant job that I had had for 15 years, and then the coaching business that I had started to, not by choice, it all kind of unfolded, I would say, both divinely and very messy, and just the way I guess that it needed to. So, because we shifted everything in my marriage and with our kids, just our home life, we ended up selling our house last summer. And we've been renting for the last year, which we have not rented since before we got married. That's been a whole imagine the money stories that come up with that. And we just bought our new house. So we are moving in at the end of this month, which I'm so excited for. But that means right now I'm in my third week of just being by myself solo with the kids while my
Okay.
husband is doing some updates on the house before we get to be back together again at the end of the month. So currently missing my best friend, but we're both working really hard for what's going to be the next phase.
I love that. So you walked away from a career in medicine to do what you're doing now. So tell me what that looks like and why you did it.
What that looked like for me was a lot of physical symptoms showing up in my day-to-day life that I had attributed as just normal, maybe because there was a history of it in my family. My dad always had neck issues, so I had neck pain almost every day and chronic fatigue, just tired, not sleeping well, anxiety was becoming a norm. So a lot of these things I just blamed on being, a busy mom and working working and just all the things you're juggling at this stage, because I just turned 40 in September. And I'm treating patients for these same things every day too. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe it's a little bit of perimenopause, the hormones are shifting. But when I started to realize that I was repeating certain cycles in patterns, both in my relationships and in my work life and day to day, that's when the light bulb really started to go on in the sense that I needed to make some changes. So it started with just some realizations
Yeah.
that something wasn't right. And this isn't something that just medication is going to take care of, because been there, done that, did it with patients over and over again. And that never was the long term solution. So that's kind of where it started.
Isn't it interesting, especially from a medicine standpoint? Like, we don't realize, I don't want to say how bad it is, but we don't realize what's actually going on until you're in it. Like, I think about when I was having issues when I left corporate like 3 years ago, and it was like, a combination of Lyme disease, and I was having neck issues too. I ended up having surgery that I don't think I needed. I think I had like degenerative discs, but I think we all get them as we get older. But I think I had so many symptoms that they were like, we could try surgery. And I think at that point, I was like, I'll do anything to fix what was wrong. And then being through it and going through everything I went through, I think I realized that it was the stress of the job coupled with perimenopause and all the other things going on. I wouldn't be where I am now had I not had the neck surgery, because I think that was the impetus for me leaving corporate. So it kind of worked out, but I don't think it was necessary as much.
I would probably agree with you without knowing a lot of the
Yeah.
details of your story, because I have seen evidence, both personally and just in research and studies, that we can heal degenerative discs and even disc bulging and things like that. So, from my experience, the body holds patterns from the chronic stories that we're stuck in. So for me, the neck pain was, I was always controlling my emotions. I was always trying to keep it together.
Yeah.
Not, crying wasn't a normal thing for me, not because I tried not to, but because I was in a frozen state. I was in a frozen state from chronic stress for so long that it took a lot to get me to that point. So I would try not to be angry. I would try not to lose my shit
Yeah.
on my kids and my husband. But, but in trying not to do those things and trying not to have the emotions, or essentially keep them under control,
Yeah.
it was creating chronic neck pain and migraines, because essentially it's like trying to hold back waves.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. And eventually the storm is coming and there's nothing you could do about it until boom, it comes. And then after the storm
Yeah.
is the calm, right? But
Yeah.
if we just learn how to weather the waves and weather the weather,
Yeah.
it's so much more of an enjoyable process just to be a human.
I know that people get caught up in what they say is like the woo woo part, but I don't think it is as much as people see it. And I just wish if people would come out of their own view of what norm is and say, no, this really is a big deal. It really can affect you way more than you think it does. And just try to do whatever you have to do. Cause I think people will look and say, well, I can't leave my job. I've been doing this or I've been doing that. Well, I left the job making a really good amount of money and just said, and I don't take for granted the privilege that I have with a husband that's got benefits and, all the other things that we have. But I think sometimes it's just like if you just give it a minute and try something different, it might be really uncomfortable. But what you're going to get on the other end is so much better if you just try. And I know that's easy.
Probably the overwhelming part is that we think we have to make this big leap right away. And that's not the case. I think the first thing is just admitting that there's something that's off, and then asking ourselves, what's the small thing that I can change to slowly get to the point where I can make that big adjustment? And for some people, it's leaving corporate. But for some people, it's letting go of certain relationships. And for some people, it's maybe moving away from where they maybe have lived for a long time. So I don't think that the big change is the same for everyone. And I don't think that any of us, or probably most of us, just make that big jump. Some of us are kind of pushed into it. But it's just really starting to give ourselves the space and time to ask
Yeah.
Where am I maybe ignoring something my body is telling me that needs to change? That's what anxiety became for me. I really have befriended my anxiety when I used to just want to get rid of it and squash it
Yeah.
and never have
Yeah.
it come back again. But now I know that anxiety is there for a reason, and anxiety is telling us that something needs to be heard.
Yeah. So there's two things I want to go into with that. My anxiety was like off the charts crazy. Like I would fall asleep on the sofa and I would wake up in a panic. And there was multiple times that I would say, "You have to take me to the hospital." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I have to go to the hospital." Like, I don't know what it was. I would like dead sleep, wake up, something's wrong. I'm having a heart attack. My like the back of my head, like right back here, I'm like, I can feel it. You've got to take me. I'm in the middle of a stroke. And there was like, I would say 4 times probably where I remember thinking to myself, they're going to think I'm a frequent flyer, and I remember being prescribed like Xanax, and the amount of Xanax I was prescribed was ridiculous. But I will say, and I never took what was actually prescribed. I took like a lower dosage. But looking back now, it was the only thing I think at that time because I didn't have the tools and know what it was that I needed to be able to help myself that was helpful. So when you look at that, like tell me symptoms that people see when they're talking about like this stage.
So, what you described makes me think that you're probably in just constant fight or flight. Your body's being flooded with adrenaline and stress hormones, and you can ignore that to a certain extent. But when the subconscious takes over, which it does when we're sleeping, then it comes to the surface. So, it helps to recognize that when there's been a lot of stress, we often will be in that fight or flight. So that's someone who could have a lot of anxiety, panic attacks. And actually, there's another point. I think that we overdiagnose. So, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. I actually think that so many quote unquote disorders are our body trying again to tell us that we need to make some changes.
Yeah.
And I was even at the point I'm treating patients every day. I have a medical degree, and I did not realize I was like depressed because I had been in that fight or flight state for so long that I then was in more of a frozen nervous system state most of the time,
Yeah.
which meant I wasn't enjoying being with my kids. Like, it wasn't easy for me to want to play with them, or like my sex drive with my husband was so low. It would take a lot for me to want to get into it, to be into it, to even seek that connection with him, having the energy to play and connect with friends without any substances. I would want to have
Yeah.
some alcohol for social lubrication or have some alcohol on the weekend with my Netflix to feel relaxed. I didn't learn, right, how to get out of those chronic states of stress. So it was showing up as the neck pain, the migraines, the insomnia, the anxiety, the depression, the lack of sex drive, and then even hormone irregularities with really painful periods because I didn't feel supported leading up to my period. I didn't know how to ask for support. I didn't even know what I needed. So it
Yeah.
would come out in the form of arguments. But how could my husband meet my needs if I had no freaking clue what I even needed in those moments?
Yeah.
So that's what some of it looked like.
It's so hard. Like, I remember sitting there crying and saying, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I know there's something wrong with me. I don't know what it is that's wrong with me. I know I don't like the way I am. I just don't know how to fix it." I didn't have any of the tools. And sadly, I like to research. So I think I was at the point where I'm like, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. And it took years of figuring it out. And now I think I have the tools to be able to do that. But thank God for people like you that are now like, no, you can come talk to me and I can work you through something that took, me 708 days to do. So I think nervous system regulation is so cool. Like on a side note, I have like this vagus nerve stimulator, which was one of the best things I've ever purchased. I have it that I put like right here, and I haven't used it in a long time, but it was amazing. So you working in that, what is in plain terms, what does that look like for a woman juggling like a career, kids, a marriage? Like what does it look like when your nervous system is dysregulated? You gave me a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So I would say probably any symptom or disorder you've been diagnosed with is more than likely a sign of nervous system dysregulation.
Yeah.
Essentially, our autonomic nervous system, which is basically just the automatic system that just responds without you having any conscious control over it, is in
Yeah.
charge of everything from our heart rate to our breathing to our digestion. And another term that I learned that I thought was so fascinating and also ties in the woo woo, but in a scientific name, was when I read that book, When the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate. He talks about this term, and hopefully I'm going to say it right, but it's the psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology system. Essentially, start from the top up, but our brain and our thoughts are directly related to the way our nervous system works, which is then directly related to the way all of our hormones work and then all of our organs work. So it's all intricately tied together. And we don't have conscious control over it unless we use some tools like you and I have been mentioning. And some of those tools could be breath work, they could be literally coloring, going for a walk, listening to music and dancing, like just moving in a way that feels good,
Yeah.
receiving physical touch from someone that you feel safe with. There's so many tools to help our nervous system feel safe, and the majority of them are free. That's one of the things I love so much that I love
Yeah.
to share, is like there's so many things that are free.
Just finding what works. I found, like, when I get stressed,
Yes.
I listen to binaural beats, but I've also got this thing, it's a camuso. It's like the necklace that you do breath work in. And when I would be stressed and we would be driving, I remember driving one day, coming back from Albany, and I was like, he could tell I was having a moment. And now it's like at the point where I've got like my toolbox and he's like, put your headphones on. And, you know, if you need to take a pill, take a pill. And I didn't at that point. He's like, well, put your headphones on and do your breathing. And then I was fine. But it took that for me to regulate myself. And now I understand that that's what works for me. And there's another thing, I'll have to put it in the show notes, but it's a parasympathetic blend. I'll have to send it to you. It's the best thing. And it's like this great oil that you just smell.
Mm, mhm.
It's the best stuff in the entire world. And it's like menthol and just a bunch of other different things, but it's like and lime and whatever, but it's honestly the best thing, I think.
Yeah. So when you're doing something like that, when you're smelling, and this is, so the nerdy side of me is going to kick in here.
I
So
love it.
when you're doing something like smelling a really favorite, so you can smell just one of your favorite smells. And
Yeah.
that is going to activate one of the nerves that kind of branch off, and it
Okay.
will signal to our brain that we're safe. Because if I were running from a lion or a tiger, I'm not going to
Yeah.
stop to smell the roses. Right? My body's like, "Danger, danger, you're about to die." But if
Right.
I have the time to stop and smell the roses, AKA smell the perfume or the essential oil, that is a quick signal to my body, "No, no, we're actually safe. We're right here. Everything's okay." So it's little things like that, and we have 12 cranial nerves that come off from, essentially, they're like branches of a tree, and
Yeah.
so there's all these cool little things that we can do for all of those nerves to communicate to our body that we're safe, that can also make our neck relax, our breath get a little deeper, open us up to receive like sexual pleasure with our husband. So that's why putting on a candle, maybe good music, starting with a massage, can lead to so much deeper, more relaxed, more present, connected emotional intimacy. So
Yeah.
just things like that.
I love that. So why do women in midlife in particular miss the signals of dysregulation for such a long time?
Man, I think a lot of that is programming. I think so many of us, I mean, we were taught, we went to school, and so we went to school 5 days a week, whatever it was, 8 to 3 or something. So I believe that most of us were taught to override our nervous systems from the time we were in kindergarten,
Yeah.
because of the way that society is set up. And I personally believe, based on just my experiences and things that I've learned, that once we start to get to perimenopause and menopause, our hormones start to drop. And I think we start to get really forced into our authenticity and really having to listen to the signals that we've been ignoring for so long, because the estrogen levels that we used to have are not as high as they once were. So we literally no longer have the tolerance to deal with the BS, including
Absolutely.
our own BS or other people's BS. So it's like, get real or get sick.
Yeah. 100%. You work with parents a lot. So how when you're talking about kids, like, how do kids absorb what's happening when you've got 2 adult parents that are exhausted?
Our energy is contagious. It affects everyone around us, and it's this invisible force. I think of it like Wi Fi. You can't see it, but you don't deny its existence. It's an energy that obviously has a function, and our nervous systems are the same thing. So when I compare how my kids are in terms of their physical and emotional health now compared to when my husband and I were having the repeated arguments. We were more distant. We just weren't energizing and supporting each other the way that we are now. I
Yeah.
see it in our kids, and I can't remember the last time we've been sick. They express their emotions in ways that my husband and I never did. We didn't feel safe enough to do that. They are doing these unique things, trying out new styles, just becoming these little expressive people. And they're different than I see many kids because we're changing systems, changing lifestyle things for them. And the biggest difference, I think, is repairing. Like, we're imperfect humans, so I'm not going to sit here and say we never ever lose our temper with our kids, but in very short time frame, we're coming back to them and we're repairing, we're apologizing, we're saying, "Hey, this isn't how I meant to express my frustration. This is
Yeah.
how I would want to handle it," right? And we're showing them that everyone is imperfect and you're going to have rupture and you better have repair in relationships. And it just really changes the way that they interact with us and the way they interact with each other and everyone that they are really around.
I love that, and I wish we would have had tools like this when my kids were younger. My daughter is 33, and I always say, like, she got, like, the, 19-year-old versions of us, and I look at my youngest, who's 23, completely different. They're very similar children, girl, boy. My middle one's just, like, in the middle, but it's funny because the youngest and oldest are very similar temperament-wise, but the way they act and react is completely different because they had a different set of parents, even though we're the same people. Like, we were just in such a different place, which,
Yes. So relatable. I feel that every day. We were completely different parents for our about to be 14-year-old than we were for our 10-year-old. And just acknowledging again that we're not perfect parents. And I already could sit here and say, like, I know when they grow up, they're not going to be these adults who have no scars or wounds. Like, they'll have them, but I think the difference is that they'll be able to come to me and safely say and express, "It hurt me when this happened. I wish you would
yeah.
have shown up like this." And I can wholeheartedly own it, like, "Absolutely, you deserved that, and I'm sorry, and I did the best that I could, and I continue learning, and you teach me all the time." My kids are constantly teaching my husband and I so much about ourselves and about each other.
I love that, and I think that actually makes me feel better because I think about my kids, and they're it's the same, like, I would want them to be able to come and say, whatever it was that hurt their feelings, and it's funny because my daughter, I think, still feels like she can't do that, and so I have to give her the space to recognize that this is how she handles things. Like, I'll say something and I think she just doesn't want to bring it up or bring up things that have happened, where my youngest is like, "No, this is what happened, X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "Aaron, I mean, calm down. Like, you're a little bit too much." But, I get it. So we give them the space to be able to do it, but just looking at the differences, and I bring the 2 of them up just because they're 10 years apart. So the middle one's just like, "I had a great life. Everything was great. Everything's perfect. That's it." And then, you know, just the other 2 are just different. So
Yeah, I don't think that none of us need or have perfect parents. But I think what makes such a difference for at least me personally to feel like I could connect with, let's say, my parents now, because those relationships for me are a work in progress and they're ever evolving, is if I can just express myself in the moment that something either right now is hurting me or something in the past hurt me, and have it not mean that you are a terrible person and you were a terrible parent. Just that,
yep.
like, yeah, I messed up. Like, let's own it,
Mhm.
validate the experience, and let's heal a little bit and grow a little deeper in our relationship so that we can move forward. Because that's where resentment really grows, is if we're not able to admit that we made mistakes and we are still learning. I just think that that's such a need that we have. And it just really helps us to be able to keep growing in relationships rather than us wanting and really needing distance in those relationships.
That's what I always look at this that trend of what do they call it where they just cut off their families? I can't remember what it's called. Just, you know, I'm like, sometimes that makes sense. Like I get that sometimes, but I think there was like this trend for a few years of just like cut off everybody. And I was like, I don't know. Like I look at my parents and they're boomers, right? And so they weren't certainly not given the tools, but I had a conversation with my sister and my dad. We were on a FaceTime call and my dad said something that was hurtful. And my sister could see that my feelings were hurt. And so we hung up the phone. And 2 days later, my dad actually called me back and he's like, "Hey, I was talking to your sister and, what I said to you, I was just joking, like, but not realizing, like, in my mind, like, the trauma that I had from what he had said that was, like, years and years old." He's like, "I didn't mean it like that. I was saying it just as a joke." And he just didn't get it. But he recognized that it hurt my feelings because my sister told him and he apologized, which for him is huge. Like, you can only ask so much. He's 76 years old. Like, what do you expect? But just I think that's what it's all about. We're all first time parents.
Yeah. Well, all of us were first time everything in terms
Yes.
of like,
Yeah.
at least this time around, whether we get to do this again, I don't know. I like to think that we get to come here many times, but similar experience. And so my mom struggles with alcoholism, and my parents actually got divorced in the last few years. And I was a big part of that.
Yeah.
I ended up speaking a truth that wasn't known between the two of them. And so things slowly unfolded.
Mhm.
But in that and in them separating has allowed me to have a new relationship with them, and was even able to have just a difficult conversation with my dad, bringing up,
Yeah.
something that hurt me, and just him being willing to hear me out, as uncomfortable and overwhelming as it is for him in the moment, because this is different than we've ever interacted in our
Yeah.
whole lives. But for him to continue to show up and be willing to have difficult conversations with me, and just know that, resentment did grow over the years, but it's my goal for us to break that down and to heal from that and to keep growing as individuals.
Yeah.
It's healed parts of my marriage, and my marriage has helped heal parts of my childhood, and then my kids help. I mean, just every relationship we have is just interwoven, and all of it affects our health, and it just can't be untwined. And that's why I just love talking about relationships, especially marriage, because if we are not happy in our marriage, it is showing up in our physical health. And that cannot be untied unless you either, leave the relationship or you heal the things in the relationship.
I love that. We're almost at the end and I don't want to dismiss or forget about this part. So tell me about your coaching.
So, my coaching, which we will be relaunching when we finally move, the goal with that, so my husband will be doing it with me, but essentially the goal is to start having a community and offer a transformative experience for, a few months, and
Yeah.
then long term more of a community to be involved in, to hold these spaces for parents, especially because I think parents, we are ripped wide open by our kids, and we're really very, very motivated to do this hard work, because this work is not easy.
Yeah.
To learn what our body's telling us, unravel the stories that we've been telling ourselves about our individual self and about our partner, so that we can heal and grow back together instead of growing apart, and ultimately having that just transform and shape the lives of our kids, to
Yeah.
create emotionally resilient kids, because I personally think that emotional intelligence and emotional resilience is going to be a huge thing to bring just wealth and success in the future. So it's just bringing the space and the ability to have these easy tools and resources for us to learn about ourselves as individuals and partners and parents, to truly enjoy being in a marriage and truly enjoy being a parent for all the mess that it brings.
I love that. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about ambition and well-being, what would that one thing be?
Your worth is not defined by how productive and successful you are. You're worthy just for being the person that you are, and it is perfectly okay and actually welcomed to be messy.
I love that. I love that a lot. I feel like this conversation was something that needed to be had, and a lot of people didn't even ask for it, didn't even know they needed, because I think nervous system regulation is it's so much more important than like 10 years ago. I would be like, whatever, my nervous system is fine. Like, that's not even a thing. The one thing I do want to say though is, isn't it interesting how people say like your brain and your gut are intertwined by like your vagus nerve or something? And so when you're feeling something, that's the reason we feel it in our gut, because there actually is like a true connection.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's
Yeah, like
crazy.
I said, that big long word, that psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology system, it's all
Yeah.
intricately tied together.
We're gonna put that in the show note, that word. We're gonna make sure that we get it and put it in the show notes. So we always end with a journal prompt. So I think this week's journal prompt would be, if you could have one honest conversation with your partner with no fear of how it lands, what would you finally say? So that's what I want to leave people with for that one. So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you when you launch your coaching business again?
So I'm on Instagram. It's Kayla.Licari, and my husband's also there too, Silvano.Licari. And that's where you'll find us now, and that will expand with time.
So, one more thing before you go, and I think this is how you and I met. This show started with like a simple idea. I wanted to be able to give women a place to tell the truth about their shifts so that the next woman doesn't feel so alone in hers. And I put out a call on Threads, I would say probably 3 months ago. And I've talked probably with, I would say probably 30 women so far, like literally all over the world. And every one of them has a different story or a different thing that they're doing. And I think that's what the goal is of my podcast. So if you're sitting on a shift of your own and you've wondered whether it's worth telling, come find me on Threads. It might be a future episode. You can always find me there. And then obviously, Kayla gave you her info, and then obviously follow Amira Evolved wherever you're listening and come see what we're building at AmiraEvolved.com. I've got a lot of, digital products and things that I started putting out with. But as always, no neat wrap up here. Just another week, another layer, which I love, of like the onion, and I'll be here until next time. So, Kayla, thank you so much.
Thank you.